Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing yet another video on portraits. So a very good way to improve your head slash portrait drawing skills is by focusing on shorter efforts that take like, let's say anything under an hour, rather than something that can take 3, 4, 5, maybe even 8 hours. So if you want to improve your portrait drawing skills, I would recommend you watch this video. So the method that I'm talking about, the method that I use is that I set apart some time in an afternoon or something. I'll sit down and I will draw a bunch of portraits, but every portrait is done in a very limited amount of time, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, etc. And what this is supposed to do is that it forces you to only include the most necessary and important details rather than hyperfixating on stuff that doesn't really matter as much. 20 minutes is really not a lot of time, so get to work immediately. I put down an oval shape, I draw the center line, and then I start working on building out the sort of rhythm lines that go throughout his head, such as, where his cheekbones are, where his lips are going to be, etc. Again, when you only have this much time, you don't have the time to think about all the sort of minute details, like how exactly the shading looks or how his beard is going to be shaded, etc. So here it just kind of forces you to look at the bigger picture and only include the most necessary details. I also try to fake details. I try to make it look more complicated than it actually is. For example, for the nose, all I really put down is one sweeping curve for the, I don't know how it's called, the actual like rib of the nose, if you know what I'm talking about, and then an extra 3 short curving lines for the nostril and for the bulb of the nose. After I get the most bare bones sort of like rough draft of all the main facial features, I move on to indicating where the shadows will be. I'll point it out on the screen. Like for example, on the side of his forehead, that little line that I drew that indicates that to the left, I'm going to put shadows. And sometimes if I'm working on a very complicated drawing, I will put little X's in the areas where I want the shadows to be, just so that when I'm actually going through the whole drawing again, I don't forget where I wanted my shadows and where I wanted my lights to be. And while I was talking in the video, I already finished the shading for most of the head. For the shading, all I did is that I just moved my pencil on its side up and down, and just to give a sort of like equally gray value across the whole drawing, and then I'll go over it again and maybe try adding some even darker values. I don't know, maybe like on the core shadow of the nose or in the brow ridge or in the eye or something. And then I moved on to shade in the beard a little bit. It's not exactly the most accurate shading. I try to add some thought into it, but I think I just end up with random patches of darker tone, but I don't think it ended up looking that bad anyway. So yeah, and at this point, the portrait is more or less done. So once again, I use this method a lot because, for example, if you're trying to improve your portrait drawing skills, but you only draw portraits that take 4, 8, maybe even only 2 hours, you would only be able to get one portrait done. But if you use this method, which focuses on the most important principles, on like the most important basics, you can get like 10 portraits done. So that just gives you a lot more practice. And that's why I always use this method. And I use it a lot more often than I do larger, longer form portraits. So yeah, that is it for today. It is a bit more of just like some useful tips. I hope you guys found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel. And I will see you guys hopefully in around a week. See you soon.